So I'm doing a little test on this Harris, you can see it here, this Harris antenna that's 30 to 512, and it has two connections, one for VHF, one for UHF. I'm not exactly sure of the frequency dividing line between those two. I'll have to do some more research. And I have both those cables are coming in here. This is the VHF with the red, and then this is the UHF with the yellow. And I wanted to I'm just doing some preliminary analysis and preliminary research on what is the isolation between the two ports. I had it half in my brain to use two different transmitters connected to that antenna. It's probably a very bad idea. I haven't thought about it, but so what I did here is first I'm going to see how much power I'm getting out of the Sincgars. I'm going to try the Sincgars on VHF. And then I'm going to use this to read the power output of the UHF port. So the Sincgars will put about 40 to 50 or 60 watts into the antenna, and this will look at the other port and see what's coming out. And this is, of course, not very precise, not a very precise method, but at least I want to see if there's 5 watts coming in which case it'll blow out probably any radio connected to it, or if it's nothing. So we're just going to key up here, and I have right now what I've got this and this in series. This is a dummy load watt meter for VHF, UHF, up to I think I forget how many megahertz. So I'm going to key up and let's see what we get. So here, let me change the focus here. So here, see, I'm getting about 50 watts out. Test W2HX. It says about 50 watts. This is going into this dummy load here, and let's see what this has to say about it. This is registering about 60 watts. I don't know which is right, but at least for relative comparison purposes, it should be okay. It's not quite zeroed, which might contribute to these, but this is about 60 watts. Now, so that's connected with this dummy load. Now I'm going to connect it to the antenna, and we'll do that in a sec. All right, so what we've done now, the Sincgars radio is connected directly to the VHF port of the antenna in question. That's this red. And separately now, I've got this watt meter connected up to the UHF port of that dual port antenna. And the idea here is to see if there's any feed through or how significant is it. We really can't tell how little it is, but we can see if it's significant. So I'm going to put this down on the 15 watt setting. I'm sure that's probably, it should probably be enough. And let's key up and see what we have. So now that it's connected to an actual antenna, we're not going to get quite as much power out. There's going to be some reflected power. So here we've got about 45 watts, it looks like. I'm going to pause for the dogs. All right, hopefully they're done with that. So again, connected to the real antenna, about 45 watts. And this one is now connected to the UHF port of that antenna to see what kind of isolation, or roughly what's coming back out at us. So I'm going to key up, and look at that. It's not even registering. Not even the slightest movement that I can tell. Keyed, unkeyed, keyed, unkeyed. So if this is all right, the port isolation of that antenna seems to be quite good. But I will probably take out a Agilent power meter with some attenuation in it and do a much more careful analysis of what's coming back. But that's encouraging. So what I would love to do is run that one antenna for 6 meters, and then also for 2 meters and 440 through a different radio, through this radio here. But I'm a little afraid to do it. So I'm also going to try a test the other way, which is to put in a UHF power into the UHF part of the antenna and see what comes back out on the HF. Thanks. All right, this is the next part where we're going to test the higher VHF, test this radio essentially, higher VHF and UHF. So really the UHF, but I just wanted to see how the VHF function on this radio. So I don't know if you can see, we've got it set to 147 megahertz to a local repeater, but we've got this dummy load on it, so there won't be any traffic. No antenna in or out. This is all we're seeing. And here's what's very interesting. So I'm going to key it up. This is a 50 watt amplifier. Harris set up 50 watts. And watch what happens here when I key it up. Look at that, 50 watts on the nose. Very surprising. Let's key it up again. 50 watts, perfect. So I am kind of wondering now, maybe this watt meter is pretty close, pretty accurate. Maybe not NIST traceable, but probably pretty accurate. So I may be getting a lot of more power out of this than I thought. Anyway, I just thought I'd add that to the picture here. All right, well here's something interesting. So I'm clearly on a VHF frequency, 147 is a VHF frequency. However, see if I can find it. When I use the VHF input to the antenna, I could not get this repeater I could not raise the repeater. And I couldn't understand why. I was going through all my settings and my presets and settings. Nothing was working. I'd key up. Usually there's a courtesy tone that you get, and I could not get it. So just for shits and giggles, I decided to try this yellow, which is what's called the UHF input to the antenna. And lo and behold, it works. So let's see. We'll key up, and you can probably hear. Yeah, you heard the beat. Beat. So now it's working. So what this tells me really is that the VHF, going back to here, the VHF input to this antenna really is 30 to 88, and everything else, is considered the UHF input. Which is probably fine for my reasons. So anyway, I'm going to continue to do some more testing on this. All right, well, this is the final sort of situation for tonight. I've got 51 megahertz on the Sincgars. It's going into what's called the VHF port of that antenna. And I've got this set up. I'm going to try it for, well, it doesn't see what it is. Let's see what this is. This is like 148 megahertz, just something without a repeater. And that's going to the UHF input of the antenna. So they're both connected simultaneously, and the idea, I've done this test, so I'm comfortable in doing it, is to see if I transmit one, will there be any feed through on the other? And so as long as they're separated in frequency, so here's 148 and here's 51, I'm going to key up, and you're going to see here, this is the signal level, and you'll see it doesn't budge. Oh, I take that back. It is. Oh, I've got the wrong. Hold on, I've got to switch transmitters. Okay. All right, I'm switching to, I'm going to be transmitting on this 148 megahertz and seeing what registers on the 51. Test, 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 test. This is W2HX test, emissions test. And you can see there's absolutely no indicator here. Now, let's do the opposite. Let's switch this to C, radio C, which is the Sincgars. And let's see what happens here. Hope you can see this. But here is this little bar is the power and is the RSSI, receive S meter type thing. This is W2HX on 51 megahertz, W2HX test. You see absolutely zero, nothing's registering. The only time when it registers, I'm going to change this now, see if I can get this right. I believe this is 51. All right, if I do transmit on the same frequency, it will register. So again, I'm on, let's go to radio F, which is the other Harris, and let's transmit And you see there is some signal coming through, but I don't think it's killing it. I don't think it's going to kill it. And let's try the other way around, see what happens. Radio C, which is the Sincgars, and let's see what we can. Yeah, so it is coming through there too. So, but it seems as long as we keep the two radios on different frequencies, which I would. This one, the Sincgars will always be on 51, and this will be on VHF, true VHF and UHF, meaning 2 meters, 440, etc. I am sort of starting to think I may be able to share this antenna successfully with 2 transmitters. Anyway, more analysis to be done here, but very interesting. Surprising how good that antenna is in the isolation of the diplexer inside of it. Very surprisingly good isolation. And then these radios, of course, are built like tanks and have their own well, for example, in the case of the Harris, it has a pre-post selector in the amplifier. I don't know, which seems to work very well. I don't know about the Sincgars, what it has for pre-post selection. But overall, very pleased. Thank you.